Hi, I'm Alex Eala, and these are three things you don't know about me. The first is I don't know how to ride a bike.
The woman who had remained silent for over 20 years finally chose to speak. For most of her life in the public eye, Maria Francisca Perello, known as Mary to many and Ziska to those who knew her as a child, made a deliberate decision to stay out of the spotlight. She built her identity around a simple but powerful belief. The story was never about her. For 2 decades, she held firmly to that idea. But then something changed. Speculation began spreading online, with whispers connecting her retired husband to a rising young tennis star from the Philippines. The noise grew louder, and the assumptions became bolder. So Mary stepped forward. What she said didn't shock the world because of drama or confrontation, but because of its calm, clarity, and quiet strength. Rafael Nadal's career exists in the realm of sports mythology. With 22 Grand Slam titles and 14 championships at Roland Garros, he spent over 2 decades showing the world what relentless determination looks like. Through pain, setbacks, and impossible expectations, he achieved what few believed could ever be done. And through all of it, there was always someone beside him, just outside the spotlight. Mary was never a passive observer. She earned a business degree from the University of the Balearic Islands and pursued postgraduate studies in Barcelona. Since 2012, she has led the Rafa Nadal Foundation, eventually becoming its CEO and guiding its charitable mission for more than a decade. She built a life and identity entirely her own. Her choice to remain private was intentional. She once explained that following Rafa everywhere could have suffocated their relationship. Creating her own independent life was the healthiest thing she could do for both of them. So she stayed quiet, consistently and purposefully. Until now. Alexandra Eala grew up in a Filipino family where sports were part of everyday life. Her mother competed internationally as a swimmer, and her brother pursued tennis in the United States. From a young age, Alexandra carried a dream that felt almost too big to say out loud. That dream led her to Majorca. In 2018, at just 13 years old, she joined the Rafa Nadal Academy, where she trained in an environment built on discipline, resilience, and mental strength. She wasn't just training there, she was being shaped by it. By 2023, she graduated from the academy as a player the tennis world was beginning to notice. Then came 2025. At the Miami Open, she made history by becoming the first Filipino player to reach the semifinals of a WTA 1000 tournament. At just 19 years old, she defeated top-ranked players and proved she belonged on the biggest stage. After her breakthrough, Nadal sent her a personal message, the first he had ever sent her directly. She didn't see it immediately, but when she finally did days later, the moment carried deep meaning. After 6 years in his system, this was his recognition of her achievement. That connection felt deeper than mentorship. It felt like family. Exactly 1 year after Nadal's emotional retirement, something unexpected happened. On November 19, 2025, he picked up a racket again. Not for a comeback, not for an exhibition, and not for publicity. He did it for Alexandra Eala. They trained together at the Rafa Nadal Academy, and the footage quickly spread across the internet. Fans watched a retired legend and a rising star rally side by side, two left-handed players from different generations sharing the same court, with natural rhythm. Nadal later shared that it felt incredible to be back on the court, and even mentioned he would come back stronger next time. Eala responded simply with the words, "Back like you never left." The moment went viral. Millions watched, and fans across the world reacted with admiration, pride, and emotion. It was a beautiful story, but the internet rarely stops at beauty. Alongside the celebration, questions began to appear. Why her? Why this moment? And what did their connection really mean? Old details resurfaced, coaching comments were reinterpreted, and online discussions turned into speculation. Because when a private life becomes even slightly visible, people rush to fill the gaps, often with imagination rather than truth. For 20 years, Mary had ignored all of it. This time, she chose not to. The world expected tension. Some predicted jealousy, others expected a carefully worded public response, and many believed she would remain silent, as she always had. Instead, what she offered was understanding. Mary had spent decades watching her husband give everything to tennis, his energy, his body, and his emotions. She had seen the injuries, the sacrifices, and the emotional weight he carried. When Rafa stepped back onto the court with Eala, she recognized something immediately. It wasn't about returning to competition. It was about purpose. Mentoring Eala was not a distraction from retirement. It was a continuation of who he had always been. The academy was never just a project. It was his way of passing on the values that defined him: discipline, humility, and resilience. Eala was proof that it was working. Mary did not see her as an outsider. She saw her as part of Rafa's legacy, and therefore part of their shared story. In his retirement speech, Nadal described Mary as his perfect partner, the person who grounded him and gave him stability throughout his career. That is the perspective she carried into this moment. She didn't respond with insecurity, she responded with pride. She spoke about Rafa with complete trust in who he is, and about Eala not as a complication, but as a young athlete benefiting from everything he had built. The internet had prepared for conflict. What it received instead was grace.